Hey SimCon, Jocko Willink here. I actually spent my adult life in the military and was honored to have command troops on the battlefield as a combat leader. And I learned a lot of lessons in that role. I learned how to cover and move and support the people and the teams around me. Learned how to keep things simple. Learned how to assess what the most important priorities are and then execute to make things happen. And perhaps most important, I learned how to use decentralized command to allow my subordinate leaders to make decisions on their own. And that might seem a little bit counterintuitive because some people think that the military is just about blindly following orders, but that actually couldn't be further from the truth. Any truly great organization is filled with people up and down the chain of command that actually think for themselves. People that are thoughtful and decisive. People that act not based on what everyone else is doing, but based on what the best solution is. That is how successful teams act. In fact, that is how successful teams thrive. They take ownership. They take extreme ownership of everything in their world. They make decisions and they execute. And I know that that is the attitude at SimCon. And that is the right attitude. So, keep pressing forward. Keep learning and adapting and improving. Keep taking ownership and keep winning. That's all I've got for now. And until next time, this is Jocko, out.
Good morning. Let me just wake all this up. Welcome, and thank you all for making the trip. Does anybody want a sandwich? No? There'll be a few of those. We went big this year, because after last year we were expecting yet more people, but I'm not sure if it's the absence of Rachel Riley or the presence of a global pandemic, but a few people haven't made the trip. So I'm really grateful to you guys for coming. And in the words of that great poet, Mr. Duffett, there's no substitute for germ-to-germ contact. So I hope you get value out of all being present. Also, welcome to those guys on the stream. We've had a flurry of people wanting to book on the stream, and I think there's probably more people on the stream than in the room now. So in net terms, we're up on previous years, which is absolutely great. A few thank yous as well as you guys. Thank you to the team. I've had very little to do this year, other than just turn up and mess things up. Kathleen, don't know where she's gone. She's probably run off to do something. Kathleen especially has worked tirelessly, but everybody in the team has been involved in pulling today together. And I know there's some of you in the room that have organised events and know all those little things that take the time. But it's really gratifying to me to whilst I'm used to being on my own in evenings and early in the mornings, the last few weeks, in fact the last few months, not just because of SimCon, I haven't been. There's been several people there. I left at something like 11:30 last night, and there's still 5 people in the office. Now, none of them have been asked to. None of that is expected. It's not a cultural thing by any stretch of the imagination, but it's just fantastic to have a team that are taking ownership for things and enjoying what they're doing. It's really, really touching for me. I've got a few things to talk about today. I've got some shiny stuff, I've got some flashy lights, but that comes at the end. First, I wanted to talk about the market and where we were, because last year I talked about changes in wholesale, and frankly we were doing a little bit of soul searching as to how we moved forward. Last year we were one of only 2 operators in the market that were purely wholesale. There's been a few changes over that year, so I want to recap on the market side of things, explain some of our thinking, and talk about where we're going in the future. If we look at the market, certainly in the UK, it doesn't vary a huge amount overseas, except resellers might be called other things in other markets. At the very base level, you've got your network operators, the guys that own the fibre in the ground, the guys that interconnect to each other to create the PSTN. You've got wholesale on top. Platform operators, and there's a number of you in the room that are offering hosted PBX trunks as a service on your own platform. And then on top of that, you've got resellers. In the UK, lots and lots of resellers, because there seems to be a thing of resellers reselling each other and playing the discount tier game. And on the end of it, finally, you've got the end users. And if we put some names against that, historically, you'll see SimWood was at those bottom two tiers, or base 2 tiers, should I say, along with a number of other people. It's important to draw the distinction of BT's presence in those 2 tiers, different sides of BT with fundamental basis differences in their contracts. But Gamma are there, TalkTalk are there. There's other people there. Above that, we weren't. But as you probably heard me rant about on the blog, in 2014, Ofcom had this really great idea that they would rob everybody's revenue and give it to BT. In our case, they took away 90% of our revenue on inbound calls because we had significant market power over poor little BT. At the same time, actually, they allowed poor little BT, who is regulated by a standard that presumes fundamental inefficiency and prices going up, they allowed them to increase what we call their transit charges, the charges they levy for calls going across their network rather than necessarily from and to their network. So we've been sailing against this, we had this double whammy of costs going up, revenue going down, and we've been sailing against this headwind of falling prices of the order of about 50% compound for the last 5 years. At the same time, retail prices have actually gone up at 6 to 7% compound. Now, that's even more ridiculous if you think of the rationale for these changes in the first place. It was Ofcom regulating the wholesale interconnect rates in order to lower rates at retail. What they failed to appreciate was that they were different ends of the market. And if you lower the rates at wholesale, do nothing about the retail rates, all that's going to happen is a massive shift in margin from wholesale to retail. So if we take a typical, can you see with me stood there, am I? Yeah, you right? If you take a typical hosted PBX seat and what it sells in the marketplace, well, I know some of you will be higher, some of you will be lower, but it's broadly about 12 to 16 pounds. We know how that flows down through the tiers of the market. And in revenue terms, SimWood historically has enjoyed about 23 pence, falling at 50% compound every year. But of course, that's revenue. We have payments to other operators for at least a proportion of the calls. So it looks something like that, where we're effectively seeing 1% of what the end user is paying. In margin terms, it's even more stark, and you can see the interconnect here has pretty much disappeared, certainly not perceptible on that chart. And we're enjoying just over 0.5% of what the end user is paying. Now, if you go back 15, 20 years, this pie chart would have been inverted, because the network operators were the guys spending a lot of money on big, expensive infrastructure that they needed to derive a return on. It's the wrong way up now. The resellers and the platform operators are enjoying that return. And frankly, at the network operator level, we and they are either sweating assets that are 20 years old, in some cases still hoping to pay for them, or embracing new technologies. So in that sense, it's been quite good. It's forced people to move forwards, forced people to move towards IP. Although that journey isn't simply a technical one, there's a big regulatory and commercial piece that is yet to be squared, notably slapping the incumbent and making them play fairly. We've not done too bad against that negative 50% headwind. If you look at Simwood over the last 5 years, we've grown revenue about 160%, and that equates to 37% compound against the market that's going at minus 50. And our approach has been to reinvest in R&D, because by reinvesting in R&D, we're stretching the definition of wholesale, giving you guys features that nobody else is. And I put it to you that as a result, we're probably the only wholesale operator that's growing. With some of the others, it's obfuscated in their accounts. It's difficult to see what the wholesale division is actually doing, but I believe that to be the case. And we've probably got the highest R&D spend in the marketplace. Now, not in absolute terms. BT spend 400 million odd on R&D, but you look at that as a percentage of turnover, and it's infinitesimally small. But I don't think that approach is going to stand us in good stead for the next 5 years. I think we need to do something. We need to do something different. And illustration of what the future looks like is the only other operator in the market that was pure wholesale, where over the last 5 years they've gone backwards. They've spent next to nothing on R&D. In fact, from their maintenance notifications, they do 1 to 2 things a year, and they generally involve updating SSL certificates. So I would view that as a business in decay. That's not a place I want to lead. It's not a place I want our staff to work. It's not a service I want to put out to you guys. We need to be moving forwards. So those of you keep an eye on the news would have seen back in October we made a couple of acquisitions. The first was Birchill's Telecom, a traditional reseller in the West Midlands. And the next one was SIP-Centric. I'm going to talk more about the SIP-Centric one. SIP-Centric have been a customer forever. We really, really respect the team. We really respect their technology and the platform. This acquisition for us was about technology and people. And I think it's fair to say when we did the deal, that was weighted towards technology. Having done the deal, it's probably weighted towards people. The team that have come across are completely awesome. It's given us what we rebranded to Simwood Partner, which goes toe-to-toe with Gamma and other people in enabling us to offer hosted PBX, trunks, but the distinction being it's fully white-labelled for partners. And dare I say, it's properly architected. We own the IPR. It builds on the best of open source, most significantly Gamma Elio with Asterisk behind the scenes. Charles is going to go do a deep dive on the partner solution later on today and talk about the architecture and some of the features that it offers. But if I just stick on the strategic piece for now, where we sit today is that we've actually got something at every tier in this stack. So we now look far more like everybody else in the marketplace, which is good, because that assumption that they make in Ofcom towers that you can rob Peter to pay Paul when they do something batshit crazy now applies to us. Historically, when there was this shift to retail, it didn't. So we can keep moving forwards. We can invest where it's appropriate to invest, where there's ROI. So I think this is good news, and want to emphasise the point that we're really not your competitor. This is something like a £30 billion marketplace in the UK alone. If you gross up our 23Ps, we're probably about the size of Gamma. Now, we're not the size of Gamma. Obviously, I'm not making that claim, but were our 23Ps to be the retail revenue, then we would be. You guys on aggregate are about the size of Gamma. That, as a percentage of a £30 billion market, is next to nothing. And as Jocko said at the start, I love our customers because our customers are different to the rest of the marketplace. They're not brain-dead resellers punting out the same order form that everybody else is punting out. You're thinking for yourselves, you're adding your own value, and you're selling things in a way that we never could to people that we could never reach. So we're really not competing with you. But just to take that a stage further and to highlight that we don't want to compete with you, rather than have, say, two sales functions, one on indirect, one on direct, that may be competing with each other, we have one sales team that are selling wholesale and partner. They're offering the best solution to the customer at the time. And very early on in any of their conversations, there's a qualification as to who are you currently dealing with. And frankly, if that's somebody that is an existing wholesale customer, we'll back off. We're not interested. That's not to say mistakes aren't going to happen, but we value the long-term relationship with our wholesale customers more than the potential win of new business. And I think that's different to the marketplace. If that isn't clear enough, and anybody's got any concerns now or in the future, give me a call, because I can't emphasize that enough. We're not in the business of pinching customers. It's a hiding to nothing. So where we're left after the acquisition is 30 awesome colleagues. Frankly, I don't think I'd have said this in a few years ago, but I love the team we've got today. They're absolutely brilliant. I don't know where the hell it got to 30. Last I looked, it was 11, and then we acquired 9 with SipCentric, and back when I was at school, that made 20. So there's 10 come in from somewhere, but they're all adding tremendous value. And I think in past years, we probably had some holes in the org chart, functions that weren't being fulfilled, things that perhaps weren't being doing, or people that were covering other people's roles, probably me in many cases. That's less the case today. The SipCentric offices were up in Birmingham. We're obviously here in Bristol. We've got staff across both. They can work at either. They can work from home. We've obviously got a good smattering of staff that are working from home remotely, including overseas. So to reiterate, I can't thank those guys enough. They've embraced the integration really positively. Charles, you lurking at the back there, Charles, who was CEO of SipCentric, is now our group CTO. Contrary to what some people may say in the marketplace, we've never had a CTO. We've had COOs before. Charles is the first CTO we've had, and there's a couple of reasons for us never having one before. And one of them is me. I wouldn't let my sort of white knuckles off the tiller because I like shiny things with flashy lights. Another is that I've always argued that the whole team is technical, so why focus attention on one person? But quite frankly, in 23 years, appointing Charles to that role is probably the single best thing we've done. He's a better CTO than I never was. So it's really moving the business forward. Similarly, Graham, who's lurking at the front here, is giving us the benefit of his decades of wisdom and experience, and now is COO. And we've got Tom in the US, who you're going to meet later. And then lurking somewhere near the middle, if I can put a red light on him, there we are. John, who recently stepped down as CEO of Lynx after 18 years, has joined us as a non-exec. So we're really pulling a quality team together to take us forward, and I can't say enough how grateful I am to all of them. Tom is talking about the USA and where we're going over there a little bit later on. I just wanted to give you a kind of 10,000 foot overview. Tom and Kathy over there, they're joined recently by a guy called Robert, who's going to be helping us sell over there, have been going at a crazy rate. Between Tom and Kathy, well, not between, each of Tom and Kathy have decades of experience in the US regulatory space, and it just so happens they like filling in paperwork. So they have been applying for and successfully obtaining CLECs at a crazy, crazy rate. We've got 10 now. There's another, this was as of yesterday, there's another 16 that are either in progress or ready to, go in. And for those that, don't have perspective on the US, CLEC is a licensed competitive operator. We don't have licensing in the UK anymore. But if we did, it would be a regulatory approved status that gives you somewhere between code powers and local loop unbundling, the ability to rock up to AT&T and use their exchanges, use their last mile copper, have an interconnect in a particular site, and certain regulatory rights like the right to have numbering. Contrast that with some of these muppets in the marketplace that call themselves virtual CLECs. There is no such regulatory status, but the status they claim makes them a virtual CLEC, gives them no rights, it merely gives them the ability. And there's a number of states that simply don't recognize that, that ability to have specifically numbering. So by the end of 2020, we should be at 30 out of 50 states, which is crazy. That includes states like California, which are normally an 18-month exercise to obtain. Every state is different. Some are harder than others. Tom reckons California will be done in 6 months for us. But the main message is we've got blanket coverage in the US already. We can give you numbering termination across the whole country already. What we're doing here is as we build CLECs, we add on our own numbering, we build infrastructure in states, we're backfilling and migrating business onto our own infrastructure. So that's a hugely exciting journey. BT Zero. Who was here last year? About half of you. So welcome to the new guys. You'll have heard me, well, you might have heard me rant about BT once or twice before, but driven by the fact that, to put it in the nicest possible way, I hate them. And driven by the fact that to give them the benefit of the doubt, I don't trust them as far as I could throw them. And add in what frankly makes me really cross that it didn't occur to me 10 years ago. The voice world isn't that different to the IP world. In IP, if you're building a network, you may buy transit off NTT, Cogent, Telia, Level 3, one of those guys, but you very quickly discover the allure of peering. And if you don't know about peering, John can tell you all about it at length. We've done that for ages in the IP world. Something like 90% of our traffic, IP traffic, comes in over peers. Very little falls onto transit. It makes sense. It improves quality, it improves security, it lowers prices. The list of benefits is endless. But it only occurred to me a year or so ago that we could actually do this with voice. And like I say, I'm really cross that it didn't occur to me sooner, but it doesn't seem to have occurred to the rest of the industry yet either. What we've been doing is embarking on an exercise of putting in place bilaterals with other operators so that rather than defaulting to traffic going through BT to get between operators, it's going directly. That prevents BT gouging this transit revenue out the middle. It improves quality, it improves security. Like I say, the list of benefits are significant. We've got 5 in place so far. But when I say 5, that includes TalkTalk. It also includes Vodafone, which isn't just Vodafone Mobile. That includes Cable and Wireless, Energis, and Thus. So these are quite, big deals. And what they mean is traffic from, say, Vodafone Mobile to Simwood numbers or from Simwood to Vodafone Mobile is flowing over a bilateral directly to Vodafone rather than hairpinning through BT or any other operator. The numbers are quite small because of the unique regulatory position in the UK, in that numbers, when they port, never leave the original range holder, and the former monopoly had quite a lot of numbers, and they won't enter a bilateral beyond the regulated interconnect that we've already got. So this excludes traffic that goes over the regulated interconnect. But we're building it as as much as we can, and we're seeing the benefit of it, not just economically, but you guys will be aware of the rather large Gamma outage a few weeks ago, where they had a dual fibre break and the network was down for best part of 24 hours. I'm not going to make capital out of that, because everybody has outages, including us. It's how you deal with them and how you make sure they don't happen again that counts. But the point I do want to make is that one of these bilaterals is with Gamma, and they had an issue where, by virtue of 2 fibre breaks, they had massive congestion over the network. So traffic couldn't come in one side of the network and egress another in any kind of reliable way. So their hosted voice service was down. Given the unique way porting works, any Gamma ported numbers to other operators would still hit the Gamma network, would still have to go out. And Gamma is the single largest donor of numbers to Simwood. They absolutely dwarf BT. And thankfully, it's a fairly heavy flow one way towards us. But the interesting point that I want to make is, during that outage, by virtue of the bilateral and its technical implementation, Simwood customers with Gamma ported numbers were completely unaffected and knew nothing of the issue. So this is something we're pushing, and it's something we're seeing the benefits of. So, who's ready for some shiny stuff? Good stuff. Okay, so last year I showed and demoed Vox App, our app, and I explained at length how we'd done it a fundamentally different way to traditional soft phones. We'd used WebRTC under the hood rather than trying to get SIP from a soft phone back into the core, and that gives a multitude of benefits. Not least, security is baked in. It's efficient because you're not sending SIP registrations every couple of minutes, eating the battery. You're just opening a WebSocket to the core from the mobile OS, and it takes care of it. It's high quality because of the presence of Opus, which we're still unique amongst wholesale providers in offering in the core. And I demoed, but it got lost on the video because the video mixer crashed when I plugged my phone in. I demoed how it was about 20 times faster than the then and current market leader amongst soft phones. Under the hood, it's Dractio with some Simwood Voodoo on top, RTP engine handling the media, and like any WebRTC endpoints, using TLS WebSocket and encrypted RTP back into the Simwood core. Well, we've done some work on it. We've completely re-engineered the back end. Thomas, one of our devs who works from France, has done a huge amount of work on this. And we've completely re-engineered the front end. Ivan and Josh, who work with Charles up in Birmingham, again, have done a huge amount of work on this. And we've added some new features, one of which is secure messaging with end-to-end encryption, push-to-talk, which I demoed last year, which runs atop of the messaging, and contact discovery in a way that we think is sane and private, unlike the way most people seem to do it. And we've added in native third-party registration. So this is something we borrowed from Simwood Mobile, those of you that remember it from a few years ago, whereby the core could register to your PBX or other registrable UAS. That is now within Vox App. So it's not the client that is registering. The client is a secure pipe to the core, but the core is registering to your equipment. But what it gives you is effectively a soft phone client on your PBX with all of the goodness that we built in by using WebRTC as that transport. But I'm not going to give you an App Store link for it, and I'm not going to tell you about a new release. Those who have been testing it for us, thank you. I'm one of them. It's been my primary phone for the last 18 months, probably. So apologies to those who called me in the early days. But it's working great. But what we've done is, rather than release that as a package or a product in its own right today, we've packaged that up as something we're calling VoxApp Core. Because that set of technologies is a foundation, is a building block upon which we can build other apps that suit specific use cases, and you can build other apps that suit specific use cases. So we're positioning this very much against, the Acrobits and the other one whose name escapes me, in the marketplace. It's an interesting direction for us. Who's a SIP-centric partner in the room? Okay, so a few of you. So you'll be familiar with the SIP-centric Communicator. So they have a WebRTC phone client, really good. I'll be demoing that a little bit later on. We've built a PBX client on the VoxApp Core. So Communicator that you enjoy in the web browser is now an app using all of that goodness that we've been developing behind the scenes. And I should give you a bit of background. When we completed the SIP-centric acquisition in October, Charles and team were working on their own soft phone behind the scenes. We were working on VoxApp. We brought the teams together, and both of those look like they might fall to the bottom of the list. Charles accepted the position of Group CTO and said, I'm going to accept it on one condition. And that condition is that we have a change freeze, the teams can integrate, we can all get familiar with each other's technology, and we know where we're moving forward. And I said, that's absolutely fine, Charles. I have no problem with that. That sounds perfectly sensible. But there's a few projects that I'd really love to get finished for SimCon. Can we just slip those on the list? And he said yes. Everything I'm showing you now is what was on that list. So they've worked phenomenally hard, and I can't praise them enough. So yes, the Communicator app is built on the VoxApp Core, so it has all of the goodness that I talked about before in terms of security, speed, efficiency, low battery usage, everything else. But we've added a few features, notably BLF and call forwarding, which you need as a PBX client. That's what it looks like. I'm not going to show it to you because Charles is going to show it to you later on as part of his deep dive. But it's free with any bundled seat on the partner platform. If you prefer to pay for components, then it's an option to pay for this, but most people are using bundles, and it's free with bundling. Incidentally, so is encryption. I'm staggered to learn that there's people in the marketplace that think encryption is an upsell rather than a human right, but that's a rant I'll come back to at a different time, no doubt. But we've added something else. It's white labeled. So just as the core partner proposition is in your brand, this app is in your brand. So one of our partners, Windsor Telecom, where's Matt? That's your version. And Charles and the team are working on adding customization to the partner portal so that you can tweak how this looks. And something else. According to DCMS, there's a target for 50 million premises having full fibre by 2025. Now, of course, that is premises passed. We can only guess how many of those will actually be customers. But what about voice? Now, our friendly incumbent has a solution to that. They call it fibre voice access, which is essentially OpenReach will overbuild anybody that's there, and they'll put an ATA in the cabinet, and everything will carry on as normal. So all of these Muppets that have made a career and had lots of fat ties and BMW M5s out of selling lines and minutes, apologies if there's anybody in the room, but highly doubt there is, can carry on as usual. The product is fundamentally unchanged in terms of what is delivered to the end user, which differs to the definition of progress I was taught at school. There's visualization of that. In addition to that, there's 3 to 5 million of those are going to be on what we call altnets. See Paul lurking at the back. There's one of those in the room. The guys that are digging up your street, dropping fibre in that aren't the incumbent. There's a massive movement in this space, and there's a whole lot of money chasing this space. And we're fortunate to have a good number of them as customers already. But there's also wireless ISPs who, I don't think Craig made it down, but we've got a number of those that are amongst our customer base as well. And then there's a number of people that are providing connectivity over 4G and the mythical 5G. So there's a lot of action that is separate to what the incumbent is doing, and it's quite an exciting time. But it's pretty sad to me that their solution to voice is to refer people back to BT to have what is presently a traditional copper line installed. What is in the future is a right to overbuild and put fibre to their customers' premises. So what we've added is the ability to add residential home endpoints to the partner platform, which might sound like a simple thing, but actually when you think about it, the use case for residential usage is totally inverted to business usage. You have a shit ton of registration events for a couple of calls a week when people phone their granny. If you're operating, let's say, a BroadSoft platform and you're paying per seat, this type of customer just does not work economically. We're fortunate with the SIP-centric platform that it's built on Communicator, and I should have said, we've got royalty in the room down here with Daniel, sitting in the middle. I don't know why you're looking at other people. Daniel, lead of the Communicator project. We've also got representation from Asterisk, and Dave from Drac couldn't make it because he's ill, but will be coming in by video tomorrow. But yeah, by virtue of the partner platform being built on Communicator, it will scale to ridiculous extents, and by virtue of us owning the IPR, economically we can do this. We've changed a few things around slightly, so you can configure an endpoint and get a number in a single API call, which better suits this use case, where it's less about a 3-month project to deploy 200 handsets in an office and more about giving Mrs. Miggins service now. You can obviously add multiple numbers to an endpoint because, hey, it's 2020, and it's optimized technically for residential use. At the moment, pricing is in line with the seat pricing elsewhere, but really, we want to be having conversations with those of you that are building out to 200, 300,000 homes. And at the 200, 300,000 home levels, I can promise you that the pricing will differ to what it is for our conventional seat pricing. Oh, and there's a white labeled app with it. So everyone in the home can have a free app, can use the numbers associated with that home out of the home. Because, hey, like I say, it's 2020. Another one. Back in October, when kind of it might look like the world began now in terms of where we are, we decreed that someone was either a wholesale customer or they're a partner, and never the twain shall meet. And one of the reasons for that is our observation over the years of how some of our wholesale customers have frankly raped and pillaged some of the other people offering bundles and partner services out in the market, essentially running wholesale traffic through partner deals. And we weren't prepared to have that on the network. But we've had a few interesting conversations over the last few months, including with people who have, quote, outgrown Gamma. And we've come to appreciate that actually SimWood can offer something uniquely different to these people. Because we own the IPR for the partner platform and we have more commercial flexibility, we haven't got BroadSoft license fees to pay. And because we own the network on the wholesale side, we can mix and match some of these. So there's certain things within wholesale, such as having your own number ranges and having us host them and the economics that come with that, that you might want to couple with, say, a white labeled app and the hosted platform. So we're introducing what we call a hybrid proposition, where customers that are virtual interconnect or managed interconnect on the wholesale side can also be partners as well and have access to the platform. And this then starts to look far more like technology licensing. You're preserving the economics that you have on the wholesale side in terms of your per minute rates, hosting numbers, your numbering rates, but you're adding in the technology on the partner side. You get the best of both worlds. They're two distinct platforms, and fundamentally you're linking them with your API keys, so that within the partner platform you see your own numbers if we're hosting them for you. Or you see other numbers that are available on your account. Any calls made through the partner platform are billed to your wholesale account, and you get CDRs exactly as normal at whatever those rates may be. So this very much enables people to move beyond the alternatives in the marketplace and themselves become a technology licensee with access to carrier services. So we're pretty excited about that, and there's a number of conversations we're having about that. But there's one more thing. Teams is now fully integrated with SimWood Partner. Charles might chastise me for the use of the word fully. Integrated with SimWood Partner, and this takes on two forms. Teams is something we've been asked for forever on the wholesale side, and we've resisted. We've resisted for a few reasons. One, we could cobble something together in probably a week, but keeping that working when Microsoft decide to change the case on a field name, as happened a few weeks ago, and broke everybody using their API globally, keeping that working when you're not certified is tricky. And as I know one of you in the room said to me a year ago, being certified is kind of hard and not something anybody sane would want to do. So we have a solution now, but it is integrated with Partner. We're not offering it at the wholesale layer. And as I started on that before segueing, it takes two forms. There's a PBX integration, whereby a user on the hosted PBX platform can be mapped to a user on the Teams platform for incoming and outgoing calls. And there's a trunk integration whereby the entire, whatever the word in Microsoft speak is, organization instance of Teams can use a SimWood Partner trunk for calls going out. So this enables you guys to finally sell to those people that want to use Teams, but also want to preserve the benefits of talking to anybody else that is outside of the organization. And I've got a little demo of that. Or at least I would have if I hadn't lost my phone. Let me just grab this. Ooh, I'm on the wrong desktop. Okay, so over on the right, that is the SIP-centric communicator. I'm going to be Alex. So yeah, fully WebRTC based, runs in Brave, obviously runs in Chrome for those of you that are mad enough to use it. And on the left, we've got Teams. This is really hard doing it the wrong way around. Okay, so calls, I've got two, I should have explained, I've got one as a Dell on extension 222, one as somebody else on extension 333. Teams been helpful there because my output is going to the, going there. So that's calls in one direction, going the other direction. Oh, I've got the notification on my screen. Let me just answer it. That so you actually believe it's happening. Hello. Okay. Right. I think the sound going out through the HDMI is probably buggering that up, but you get the gist. Similarly, if I can make a call going the other way. I've got the pop-up on my screen here. That's annoying. So that's coming into Teams. Have we got audio for my HDMI, guys? No. Okay. And this is going to be a bit poor showing you. I won't show you the other way because you're not going to hear it anyway. But you get the gist. So you can use Communicator or you can use Teams. The users are coupled, and people can work the way that they want to work from where they want to work. Now I need to get back into my blooming slides. How do I do that? Oh, sorry, I can't be bothered. So anyway, the last slide was a summary slide. Just to say, if I can remember what was on it. So Vox app, we've completely re-engineered it. That is now a toolkit. And a framework for us to build other apps, for you to build other apps. The first one out the door is the SimWood Partner Communicator App, which is free with any bundles, and Charles is going to demo later. We're launching the residential platform for those altnets of you in the room, and yes, I am looking at you, Paul, which enables you to spin up residential users on the hosted platform in your own brand with an app that can go out to them. There's the hybrid solution, so those of you that are wholesale VI and MI customers can take advantage of the partner platform. Maybe not necessarily for all of your customers, but you can mix and match, access your wholesale economics and features like number hosting with the partner solution. There's Teams integration, and there's probably something else that I've forgotten. But with that, that's me. Thank you very much.